And what's going on, Devils fans? Hope you are doing well. What is going on? It is, as always, your host, your best friend, your confidant, your number one source, Neil Villapiano, and welcome to another edition of the Devil's State of Mind podcast, an off-season edition of the podcast right here on the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as SportsWire Radio, the best place to get everything you need to know about a team that is already beginning its off-season moves, the New Jersey Devils. And as always, Devils fans, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to check this episode out. Hope you are having yourself a great day, whether you're checking this episode out here on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast from. You guys know, as always, that I greatly appreciate all of your support, all of the downloads and everything. It means so much to me. And thank you guys for choosing the Devil's State of Mind podcast as your place to get everything that you could possibly want to know about this New Jersey Devils team. And so, here's how today's episode is going to go. First and foremost, actually, before I kind of break down a little bit of what's going to happen today, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, you could see that I'm rocking a brand new hat that I got at the NHL shop in New York City, the NHL store in New York City. Last week, a week ago, was my best friend's birthday, and we went to a bunch of stores in the city, and one of them was obviously going to the NHL store, and I was curious to myself as to, was I going to find anything, right? Because obviously I have a ton of Devil stuff, and I wondered if anything was going to pique my interest. Well, the first thing that piqued my interest was, of course, this hat. I really, really like it. I love the lettering on the top. It's got a really cool Devils logo in the back. And for whatever reason, I really like where the NHL logo is at the top here. I don't really know. I can't fully explain it. But nonetheless, I really do like it. It's actually now become one of my favorite hats. But that wasn't the big prize. The big prize was I've got this black jacket that you see here that has the Devils logo in black on the front. And then if you turn it over to the other side, it says just New Jersey Devils, which is really, really cool. There's also a NHL Eastern Conference patch on the side. I got this, right, for only $75. It was on sale. The original price was like $200 something, and I ended up getting it for just $75. And I just couldn't pass it up. It was an absolutely fantastic deal, and I think the jacket's really cool. I'm definitely going to try to wear it to one or as many of the Jersey games that the Devils have next year that I go to, just to kind of rock out the black. I'm also definitely going to be rocking this hat as well at some point at games as well. But yeah, I just wanted to quickly show you guys that if you haven't checked it out here on YouTube. I also did post it over on my socials, Devil State of Mind on Instagram and Devil State over on Twitter as well. And again, make sure you guys are following both of those if you have not already to help support the podcast even more. So just wanted to show you guys that kind of a really cool and, really, really fun experience. I've been to the store before, so this was not my first time, but I really, really enjoyed my time, enjoyed celebrating my best friend's birthday, and got a couple of cool Devils stuff while I was there. So that was a fun trip. So now let's get into the nitty gritty, shall we, Devils fans? So we're first going to we're going to quickly recap the Stanley Cup Finals. Obviously, I didn't do an episode last week, so I want to quickly just chime in a little bit about the Stanley Cup Finals, my overall thoughts, and what to expect from both teams moving forward. And then we're going to get into talking about the Devils. They made a signing that, it doesn't really, pique a lot of people's interest, but I want to give some information nonetheless. But the big story is one of the Devils' bottom six players was moved last week via a trade, and we're going to break down that at the end of this episode. So, as always, Devils fans, we have a bunch to get to here on the Devil's State of Mind podcast, so let's not waste any more time and get rolling. And we will get rolling and drop the puck with actually some breaking news that happened earlier today here on Monday, June 23rd, 2025. It doesn't involve the Devils specifically, but it involves one of the teams that the Devils face off in the Metropolitan Division, as the Philadelphia Flyers acquired Trevor Zegras from the Anaheim Ducks in exchange for Ryan Pooling, a second-round pick in this year's draft, which is pick number 25, and a fourth-round selection in 2026. So the Anaheim Ducks continue to kind of reshape their roster. As we know, they acquired Jacob Trouba last year. Not too long ago, they also acquired former Ranger, Chris Kreider. And now they ship off Trevor Zegras. This was not a total surprise considering the fact that there have been rumors that Zegras was going to get moved. He's been kind of a disappointment over the last couple of years dealing with injuries and inconsistency. And now he goes to the city of brotherly love where he'll get an opportunity to be a reclamation project under Rick Tocchet. And Jack Hughes, who's very good friends with Trevor Zegras, he'll get a chance to play against his buddy more than twice now as they'll face off against each other multiple times competing in the Metropolitan Division. So another Metro team making some moves as well to kind of reshape their team. I think overall it's a really good move for the Flyers. I think it's a low-risk, high-reward move. As for the Ducks, kind of looking at, former New Jersey Devil and current general manager of the Anaheim Ducks, Pat Verbeek, I really don't know exactly where they're going overall with the direction of the team. I don't know if they're trying to compete or whatnot. It's very strange because they've had a couple of cap dumps that they've been involved in, and now they ship off, Trevor Zegras. And, we'll see. We'll see if Zegras can redefine his game in Philadelphia, and hopefully it doesn't hurt the Devils that much when we go up against him and the Flyers this season and moving forward. But, yeah, I really just wanted to quickly bring that up, kind of give my thoughts on that as, it involves the Devils in the sense of just a new guy that we're going to be seeing a lot more of going into next season and beyond. So now let's shift over to our first subject of this episode. And that is quickly recapping the Stanley Cup Finals. And again, many people have already talked about it, but the Panthers blew out the Edmonton Oilers 5-1 in Game 6, including a 4-goal performance from Sam Reinhart as the Florida Panthers repeat as Stanley Cup champions, first team since the Tampa Bay Lightning back in 2020 and 2021 to repeat as Cup champions. And even though this almost went the distance like it did last year, I have to be very honest with you in saying that other than the first 2 games of this final, and to a lesser extent, maybe Game 4 with the fact that the Oilers came all the way back and won the game in overtime to send the series tied at 2 games apiece, heading back to Edmonton, the Panthers really, really proved that they were the best team. They really dominated a lot of the play in these finals. They ended up outscoring the Oilers 28-17 in these finals. And they also, the Panthers, held a lead over the Oilers for 255 minutes and 49 seconds during the entirety of the finals. So that's all 6 games, which is now a new record for a championship series in NHL history. That is the longest amount of time that a team has led overall, combined in all the games in a Stanley Cup final in the history of the Stanley Cup final. So that's really, really remarkable. No surprise, Sam Bennett won the Conn Smythe, 15 goals, 23 points. And, we'll see if he ends up truly testing free agency, but I think it's very likely he's going to end up re-signing in Florida. And the Oilers, unfortunately, set some history themselves, not the good kind, as they become the first team to lose back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals since the Boston Bruins in 1977 and 1978, when they lost in back-to-back years to the Montreal Canadiens. So now you look at it and you ask the question, are the Florida Panthers a dynasty? I think that it's still too early to tell. And I know that some people might find that a little bit ridiculous, but the fact of the matter is that we've seen teams win back-to-back cups, especially in the last decade, and not be able to continue on that success moving forward. And the Florida Panthers, now they've been to 3 straight finals. They've won each of the last 2. It'll be really interesting to see how much of this team they can keep around next year with Aaron Ekblad and, as mentioned before, Sam Bennett and Brad Marchand as well. We'll see. And it is a grind to go deep into June for 3 straight years, and that takes such a toll on one's body. So it's very hard to get to one Stanley Cup final. For the Panthers to get to 3 in a row and win the last 2, I think is remarkable. And a job well done by Bill Zito, Paul Maurice, and that entire Panthers organization. And they've rightfully deserved to be Stanley Cup champions these last 2 years. And, we'll see if they can continue it, but I don't think it's time yet to call them a dynasty. If they get back to the finals and somehow win the cup, 365 days from now, then we could definitely talk about them being a dynasty for sure. For sure. As for the Edmonton Oilers, the biggest question is going to be with Connor McDavid. I don't know what's going to happen. He spoke about in his exit interview that at the end of the day, he's going to do what's best for him and his family. Does that give you cause for concern if you're an Edmonton Oilers fan? For sure, because it's not a full guarantee that he's going to be back. But I think he's going to end up signing long term. I think he's one of those superstars that's just going to be loyal to the team that drafted him. He's the captain, Canadian boy. I think that he wants to really make it work in Edmonton. And the Oilers are going to have to make a lot of moves to really give McDavid some more hope, figuring out the goaltending, figuring out some more depth. These are moves that are going to have to be made and have to be made ASAP, literally like starting today. Started a couple days ago, but really with this week coming up and the NHL draft coming up on Friday, you really, really have to get going here with moves without question. So, yeah, that's really my takeaways from the Stanley Cup Finals. Congratulations again to the Florida Panthers. And now we get ready for the 2025-26 season, which is already underway as we are into the offseason here. And that obviously leads us into talking about some moves that the New Jersey Devils have already made this offseason. And we're going to start with what happened on Sunday, my birthday, June 15th, as the Devils signed Juho Lammikko, and he was currently playing overseas in Europe, and the Devils signed him to a 1-year contract at an $800,000 AAV. It's a one-way deal, meaning the Devils will pay him $800,000 this season, no matter if he plays in the AHL or playing up with the Devils in the NHL. So here's a little bit more background on Lammikko, for those of you that don't know. This will be his 3rd stint in the National Hockey League after the Florida Panthers drafted him in the 3rd round of the 2014 NHL draft. He came to North America to play in the AHL and the NHL from 2016 to 2019. Then he returned to SM Liga at the end of the 2018-19 season before playing part of the 2020-2021 campaign in the KHL. He then returned to the NHL for the shortened 2021 season, once again with Florida. And then he was traded to Vancouver in the deal that sent Olli Juolevi to the Panthers. And that's pretty much that's pretty much been his journey up until this point, especially between the NHL and AHL. He scored a career-high 7 goals that season in 2021, and his forechecking was a good change of pace for the Canucks' top 6. After the Canucks declined to extend a qualifying offer, Lammikko was once again heading back to Europe. He played 3 seasons for Zurich SC of the Swiss A-League. He actually had 24 goals 3 years ago, but he never matched that offensive production and had just 11 goals last season. He's also won, I think, more than one championship with Zurich, and he signed a 3-year extension with Zurich 6 months ago. So what I find interesting about that is that Lammikko could have easily just, not taken this offer and just decided to stay in Zurich and just keep playing there, especially because he has a lot more stability with a 3-year extension. But he takes a 1-year, essentially prove-it deal with the New Jersey Devils and is back in North America in the NHL for the 3rd, 4th time already in his career. So here's the thing about it. I look at Lammikko as a guy that's going to end up most likely being the 13th forward for this team. I don't really expect him to be a guy that ends up being one of the pieces for the depth scoring in the bottom 6, unless he has a really good camp and proves himself. But I will say that if Lammikko ends up being on the starting roster to begin the year, I would not feel super, super happy about that. I would be worried about it. So my whole thing with Lamico is that it's just a signing to add depth to the roster and just a guy that could be a plug-in guy here or there every other couple of games, in case of an injury or just trying to switch up the lineup a little bit. But I think overall, this is just going to end up being a guy that's, the 13th forward. I don't expect a whole lot from him offensively. He seems to be a guy who's pretty good on the forecheck as well. Kind of, again, continuing that trend of what Tom Fitzgerald and also Sheldon Keefe like, a lot of two-way guys that can play well on either end. And Lamico seems to be another one of those guys that can certainly do that. So overall, I think the big thing with this, again, is just the fact that this is a depth, and I mean really depth signing for a guy that's going to have very little to no expectations, most likely be that 13th forward. And I wouldn't necessarily, stress about it or anything or say, oh, what is Tom Fitzgerald doing? This is ridiculous. Like, we need to be getting actual good NHL players on the bottom six. There is still time. The Devils have a bunch of cap space. Even after, once they eventually re-sign Luke Hughes, they're going to be fine. They're going to figure this out. I feel confident in that. Am I super 100% confident? No. But I am fairly confident that they're going to figure this out. That's the way I look at it, so I wouldn't stress about it. But nonetheless, Juho Lamico is a New Jersey Devil. He has signed a one-year deal at $800,000, and we will see what he can potentially bring to this Devils team going into the 2025-26 season. Now, let's shift over to the big news. You knew we were going to talk about it, and let's talk about it as it came out of nowhere last Wednesday as it was right around 5 p.m., so right around rush hour. The Devils announced they had traded Erik Haula to the Nashville Predators for a 2025 fourth-round pick and defensive prospect Jeremy Hansel. And there is no salary retention. That $3 million, that $3.15 million on the last year of Haula's contract, all in full, goes to Nashville. And what's also interesting is that Erik Haula had a no trade clause. So he actually waived it and accepted the trade to Nashville, a team that Erik Haula has played before in his career. So good on Erik Haula. I mean, I'll say this. I appreciate that Haula, I think, understood the writing on the wall. And now he goes to a Predators team that is trying to rebound from a really, really disastrous season last year. And I think Nashville is hoping that he can help provide some veteran, leadership and trying to bounce back himself. I think he was one of those guys that maybe you could look at as a bounce back candidate for the Devils. But with the Devils looking to try to get cap space for not just Luke Hughes, but to retool this roster, he was one of those guys that we knew was going to end up getting moved one way or another, whether that was being traded as he was or even potentially being bought out. And as I mentioned, he's in the final year, Erik Haula is, of his 3-year, $9.45 million contract that he signed with the Devils. He finishes his career in New Jersey with 97 points, 41 goals, and 56 assists in 225 regular season games. He also had 7 points, 4 goals, and 3 assists in 17 Stanley Cup playoff games in New Jersey. And after what was a really, really strong first year in New Jersey 2 years ago, he really was very inconsistent and more disappointing than anything, especially when it came to point production and trying to help this team get, goal scoring, depth scoring. This past year in particular was the most frustrating because while he was certainly dealing with injuries, there was also a point where he went 4 straight months without a point, not a goal, points. He really, really just could not get anything going. And while he was still fairly strong on the faceoff dot, that was pretty much it. He wasn't really producing anything. And so it just felt like to me that he had to go. He had to go, and the Devils needed to get some of that cap space back, and they do, because they cleared the entirety of the last $3.15 million that Erik Haula had on the books. And so now with that move, the Devils currently have $14.394 million in cap space, with only 10 forwards currently under contract on the NHL roster. And with the addition of Nashville's fourth-round pick, 99th overall in this year's draft, the Devils now have 2 picks in the second, fourth, and sixth rounds. They don't have their first-round pick as they gave it to the Calgary Flames in the Jacob Markstrom deal. So, and the last thing here I'll say, just kind of talking about Jeremy Hansel, who you see on your screen here, I'm going to be very blunt with you. This is a nothing burger. This is not a prospect that you should have any expectations at all of being a guy that could be much of anything for the Devils long term. Could be wrong. I could totally be wrong. But Hansel, who's currently 22 years of age, is a 2023 sixth-round pick of the Predators, who has 2 assists in just 9 games in parts of 2 seasons in the American Hockey League. The 6'1" left shot defenseman spent most of last year with the ECHL Atlanta Gladiators, scoring 3 goals, 19 assists, and 22 points in 61 games to pair with 28 penalty minutes and a brutal plus-minus rating of -24. So, yeah, I mean, maybe the Devils look at a guy like Hansel and just adds depth to the team. I mean, a guy that could certainly plug in Utica or Adirondack, but that's about it. I don't expect him to be on this team long term. That's just the way that I look at it. So maybe they just had to do it for the sake of doing it, but nonetheless, for Tom Fitzgerald to get that type of value for Haula's contract and to not have to retain any of it, and on top of that, Haula being okay with it, is really good business by Tom Fitzgerald. It's a good start. It's the first domino to fall, essentially, of this offseason. So the Devils now are just under $15 million in cap space. The next question is, what are the Devils going to do with Andre Palat? I think that's the big question for everybody here, because he has $6 million left in the next 2 years with this Devils team after he signed that, contract a couple off seasons ago. And I think the Devils honestly would like to try to move Palat's contract if they can. Now, I look at a team like Anaheim, who seems to be perfectly fine with these salary dumps, that maybe it's somebody that they can, dangle Palat with and try to move him. Because if they can move his contract completely off the books, you're looking at a team that could have $20 to $21 million in cap space before any other moves are made. And that doesn't include re-signing Luke Hughes or anything else. And if you can go into the rest of this offseason with $21 million, you're giving yourself a lot of flexibility to do a lot of different things. And that's really what's important here, because again, the objects of this offseason, the objectives of this offseason, for this Devils team are to re-sign Luke Hughes, fix the bottom 6, and then find a top 6 winger to play alongside, most likely Jack Hughes. Those are the 3 objectives. And I think that there's a way that they can do all 3. It's just a matter of seeing. Maybe some of it's going to be in-house. I think most of it is going to be guys coming in, whether it's free agency or trade. I think mostly trade. That's just the way that I look at it. So what do you guys think of the trade with Erik Haula going to the Nashville Predators? Are you happy about it? Are you disappointed to see Haula go? What are your thoughts on it? Let me know in the comment section here on YouTube, but also let me know what your thoughts are over on our social medias. Again, Devil State of Mind on Instagram and Devil State over on Twitter. So again, as mentioned, the first domino of the offseason has fell, and that should be really the first of many moves that this New Jersey Devils team is going to do this season. So we're going to continue to keep up to date with it. The NHL draft is coming up on Friday. So by the time most likely the next episode will be coming out, which will be the day before free agency starts on June 30th, we'll kind of recap what the Devils do at the draft in terms of drafting guys. And certainly if any other moves come up, we will talk about them as well. And if they are really big moves, we might have to have some emergency podcast episodes coming your way at some point this week. But as always, guys, thank you so much for checking out Devil State of Mind podcast, and we will see you in the next episode. Everybody, continue to be the awesome people that you are. And as I always say at the end of every episode, put those horns up, baby, Let's go, Devils.